And Ralph Bakshi, for those of you who don't know, was the bad boy animator behind the first ever X-rated American animated film, Fritz the Cat. He later went on to do films like Fire and Ice, American Pop, the animated Lord of the Rings movie, and a ton of other stuff. But before any of that, he was working on Spider-Man 67, and before that, he was working on Rocket Robin Hood. And while he was working on Rocket Robin Hood up in Canada, his boss, Steve Krantz, told Bakshi that since he was having problems with Rocket Robin Hood producer Al Guest, that he should just steal all the series model sheets and book it to New York where they could just set up shop anew. Bakshi did this, and a warrant was put out for his arrest. So what do you think Bakshi did? Do you think he went and turned himself in when he found out about the warrant? No, of course not. Bakshi told Johnny Vita, the background artist responsible for all these colorful psychedelic backgrounds, to just go to the airport without him. In an article in Animation Magazine, Bakshi said, "So I said, Johnny, you go to the airport with the suitcase of model charts and they'll pick you up. You tell them I'm supposed to show up, but you don't know where I am." So he headed for the airport and I jumped into a cab. The driver said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "To the border," which was a 2.5-hour drive. When Johnny showed up at the airport, 30 guys pounced on him. I got to the border and got out of the cab on the Canadian side of the bridge. The whole fucking thing is like a movie. There are giant, slow motion ice floes floating down the river, and American guards in the distant mist. I'm watching the Canadians, and when they turned their back, I took off like a fucking shot. The bridge is up, and the cars are being stopped, and I'm running, and I hear screaming on the Canadian side, and then a shot, so help me God. I got to the American side, and both MPs are just standing there with their rifles locked. I get there out of breath, and I said, "Will you let me back in my own country? They're schmucks in Canada." The guys broke up and parted. I was a free man. I walked into this coffee shop and I called my girl Elizabeth, who I'm married to now. She's hysterical because Krantz had called her and told her that he didn't know where I was, but he knew that they had caught Johnny Vita, so I told Liz where I was and she came and got me and we drove home to Manhattan. They kept Johnny for 2 days, but Krantz got him out because the arrest warrant wasn't for him. When Steve's lawyers called Guest and told him I was safe back home in this country, he didn't believe it. I told Guest on the speakerphone that his Canadian Mountie sucked, and that they couldn't catch anybody from Brooklyn even if they wanted to. Isn't that? I love that, man. That is just one of the many great Ralph Bakshi stories.